Financial disclaimer. The information provided in this stream is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional financial or investment advice. We are not licensed financial advisors, and the content presented here is based on our personal opinions and experiences. Investing in stocks and other financial instruments involves risk, including the potential loss of capital. Any investment decisions you make are solely your own responsibility, and you should conduct your own research and consult with a qualified financial professional before making any investment choices. The content we share on this stream may not be accurate, complete, or up to date. Market conditions and financial regulations can change rapidly, and we cannot guarantee the accuracy or reliability of the information presented. We do not endorse or promote any specific stocks, companies, or investment strategies. Any actions you take based on the content of this stream are at your own risk, and we will not be held liable for any losses or damages that may occur as a result. Always remember that past performance is not indicative of future results, and no investment is guaranteed to be profitable. Make informed decisions and consider your risk tolerance before investing any funds. By accessing and using this stream, you acknowledge and agree that we are not responsible for any investment decisions you make as a result of the content presented. You are encouraged to seek advice from qualified financial professionals for personalized guidance. Please invest responsibly and only with money you can afford to lose.
Hey man, just found the next guaranteed multi-bagger.
Hey man, you found another one? What is it this time?
Come check this out.
Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to the Laughing Stock. Happy Tuesday. Just going through the daily, or not the daily movers, just the dashboard here. And it was kind of a down day from what I could see. There is a few things up. It looks like mostly commodities. Looks like the Nikkei is up, or I feel like I say that wrong. I've heard other people say it in a different way. I don't remember exactly. Nikkei, whatever it is. Either way. But the portfolio was down a little bit from the first 2 days of the week. So I think yesterday was a decent day. Everything looked up, but I think it kind of all pulled back today, and maybe a little bit more so. I retook a position in CLW just because I kind of liked it on the chart. We'll see if that was a good idea or not. Because there's still a few things. I know I said I was kind of done testing stuff, but there's still a few things I'm testing. I'm working on position sizing. I think most of the positions I'm going to take will be around 10%. On the low side, which I know is still pretty large, which would lead to about 10 stocks. And then on the high side, 20. And then, I mean, if I really, really like it, 25%. I think having a minimum of 4 stocks, I've been going back and forth in my head on what I want to have. And I feel like if you had 4 stocks at most, like nothing can kill you. So going forward, I'm going to kind of stick to that rule of thumb. So you won't really see position sizes for me creep much over 20%, maybe 25% at most. And I'm sure that will have to do with kind of how the markets are. In probably more bullish markets where there's a lot of opportunities, I probably won't need to take such concentrated position sizes. And then in tougher markets, maybe I will, just because the opportunities will be less. Because I'm listening to a lot of other people talk about how they do their position sizes, and that seems to make pretty good sense to me. So still just have Immersion, MAXN, and Clearwater. MAXN had a little pullback. Immersions, I probably should have stop lost this one pretty hard, which I did not, and the whole chart's kind of breaking down right now. So I think I'm gonna kind of hold through for this one, just in I know it's really stupid, but the hope it comes back. So we'll see if that ends up working out. As you can see, the chart is pretty much broken down. If I traded a few times on this day, and then I took another position around, like, I think it was 10 something, low 10s, and it did not work out. So probably should have put just a hard stop for the day. That's another thing. I've been trying to work on my stops instead of just doing like a trailing percent or something, because there's so many times you're just going to get stopped out, which I'm actually, in hindsight too, I'm thinking like it's okay to get stopped out, because to be honest, with the way I'm trying to swing up on some of these trades, that you're gonna be looking for pretty large swings. Like my goal, like I said, is always to capture like something like this, for instance. So if I buy in here, like let's say I buy in here 2 or 3 times and get stopped out on some of these days here, because I you know, it just hasn't happened yet. The breakout hasn't happened, even though to me it looks like it's kind of consolidating here. You know, you can see these daily lows are starting to increase. Looks like volume, looks like MACD's turning around. All the things that, you know, we talk about that we look for. And then as this breaks out here, if this does continue to break out, and just pull up with like Bollingers and stuff like that so you can kind of see what I'm saying. So here, right, so it's kind of just bouncing around. It's consolidating. Now you see it start to break out here. It starts to go over some of the moving averages, as well as it's on the upper part of the Bollinger bands, as well as MACD starts to go, RSI starts to pick up, and then we catch this huge run. And, you know, if like I said, if I have to get stop lost in here once or twice for, you know, like a 1% or so, in the grand scheme of things, who cares if this starts to break out and then I capture any bit of this move? Because this move is going to be, you know, 20 times that stop loss. So I'm thinking of keeping the stop losses kind of tight from the buys. And I actually had something annoying happening to me with CLW, which I didn't really think about, and I feel like this is wrong. So CLW, I bought into last time. I bought as it went down, and when I sold it, I made money on the overall trade. So I was up, I think, you know, and like I said, it wasn't anything crazy. I scalped it for like 2%, but because some of my shares technically were still not making money, I ended up getting a wash sale on it, which doesn't make any sense to me, because a wash sale shouldn't really occur unless you lose money. And technically, if you look at the overall move, the whole trade, I made money on it. There was shares that lost money. So now when I bought into CLW, I noticed my price was higher than it should be because it considered it a wash sale, because a few of those shares were at a loss. Most of them were profitable. So I kind of like, I want to call up Fidelity and see if there's anything I can do about that. Maybe it's just my bad and I should have known that. But that's kind of a pain to me that you got screwed on that. So it's whatever. It wasn't like a huge change in my position that I bought back into, but it's just kind of frustrating that can occur. So that's another reason too, that, you know, when I'm going to these positions too, I kind of like to just take my position instead of trying to, you know, scale in and scale down and blah blah blah. Just get into the position when everything's when it really turns around, and set your stop. You know, and I'm the other thing too is another thing I was looking at is, if you look at like intraday, like you look at some of these candles here, you know, you don't know how many times it's bounced up and down in this range from the day. I mean, you can see the high, low, and where it started and stopped, but it could have bounced down a few times. So if you set a stop loss intraday and get stopped out there, yeah, that can kind of stink, but at the same time, like I feel like I'll set like an intraday stop loss, but then also have just kind of a stop loss more in general in my mind. And if it ends the day down there, I'll sell the position. And then that way, instead of like an intraday always triggering your stop loss, it would just be more at the end of the day. So just check kind of everything right before the market closes. If anything's kind of past where I want it to be, we'll get out, and then if we, you know, we'll reconvene and see what we think looking like the next day. Maybe wait another day or two. So I found that if I'm following this strategy and it's the stocks I like, for instance, like when we pull up ARK's chart here, so obviously ARK was a great one, but either way, so you can start to see, I mean, this is kind of just at the end here, but this was when ARK was running. This is way, I wasn't even in it at this point. I think I'd already sold for this. I didn't even capture this whole chunk of the move, which is disappointing, and this is part of the reason you know, at the time I wasn't using any technicals, but not, well, maybe it was the move before this. I'd have to zoom out. Let me zoom out for a second. Go to a 10-month here. Yeah, no, this is the move I captured for ARK. I captured this from like $1.50 or whatever it was up to somewhere in here, and actually played that one very well, but then missed out there on the rest of this entire move. So the idea would be here is on a consolidation here that starts to break out in this section, to try and capture more of these moves and not just kind of get just parts of these moves. And the technicals kind of allow you to go in. So I like the story with ARK. And then just kind of using these charts. And like I said, you start to see kind of it break out. You break out from even the moving averages or Bollinger Bands. And then you can catch different parts of these moves. And it's kind of the same. It seems to me like it kind of becomes the same pattern a lot in terms of when it breaks out. So I've been kind of... there's variations, you can see it, but at the same time too, as long as it follows a few general guidelines, and I feel like if you keep the stop loss kind of tight, you should be able to kind of, without much loss, as it starts to look like it's going to consolidate, take your position there and kind of hold through for a little bit so you can capture. And then on these moves, just kind of riding it up. Like I said, you can ride it up to the top of when Bollinger Band. One thing I've been thinking is when it kind of flattens out here, or maybe using the moving average. Like this is just a 10-day moving average, the red line there. I've looked at a few other swing traders, and they've done similar ideas to that, some of the successful ones. So I think that's a pretty good strategy overall. And as long as, like I said, as long as you're matching that up, I find with RSI and the MACD turnaround, like when MACD stays flat like this is an interesting period because you can kind of see, not only is it consolidating, and it's kind of hard to see on such a zoomed out chart here. Let me go back to, well, let's go to three-month chart. We'll just see what that looks like. Okay, so this would be a decent example. It's a little high. It doesn't quite pull back enough. Maybe this one's the better example here. So anyways, coming down, right? MACD is negative. MACD starts to turn positive in here. Now that doesn't signal necessarily a buy right here because all this stuff's kind of pulling back and we're already above Bollinger here, but then it drops back below. And then you kind of have this looking consolidation, like, you kind of get these lows. I guess you could even do it more like this. And as you see this start to kind of bring in, the Bollinger Band starts to bring in, when this starts to break out above that 10 and 20-day moving average, that's where I keep seeing it's kind of like just kind of gap up. It's not a true gap up, like it's not like an overnight thing, but anyways, and then like I said, you could follow it up until as this starts to smooth out up here, so it would be somewhere on this day or this day that you'd get out. And even let's say you got in on one of these days here, that's at 590. You ride it up, and even if you get out here at 630, like let's say this day you kind of just ate it and then decided to get off here around like this Bollinger Band or something like that. And honestly, I would imagine on one of these 2 days with these kind of jumps, you'd be trimming this. So, and this is just one move. This is just one move of many moves going on in this. So you got to think. I mean, this could be 10, 15% gain, and we're talking in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. And so in just a few amount of days, you could definitely capture some of that move, and then you'll be in a good spot where, as this pulls back down here too, you would get out the rest of it here, which is still at 650. So still most of your position was up 10%. So almost the entire position up 10%. And then if you got up here, it would almost be 20% for, so probably almost like a 15% overall. And this is in, a 3 or 4 day, and this isn't the strongest chart I've ever seen. This is just a small example of it. But it's one pattern that I keep seeing, and like I said, I've been trying to work on as RSI and MACD turns around. And I find as long as you're screening, things that matter, earnings turnarounds, earnings surprises, just overall a company who's kind of, has a whole business kind of change. Those are the ones that always stand out. That's where like the deep value comes in. And as of now, just because, the market cap size doesn't matter so much. Yes, I don't want it too small. I mean, like I said, I probably won't go into a company like MAXN in the future. That was more just me testing around, and now I'm kind of holding on to it just to see if we can sneak back some of the cash and gain. And I actually think there is a good business there going forward. I think it's just maybe a little early. But because even with MAXN here, it's kind of tough. You can argue... If I was kind of arguing the same thing here, it looks like it's kind of starting to do the same thing. This looks like it's consolidating, where it looks like it could break out, and it's technically still above the 20 moving day average, but it hasn't really like popped on much volume. Like this was technically a pop here, but that was just a one-off quick thing, which makes me wonder too, as this 50-day, this is a 50-day moving average, as this starts to approach down here, what is the chances that that gives the confidence for it to raise up? Who knows? We'll see. Well, I don't even know what this is doing. What is this doing in after hours? Anything? I know it was down. Yeah, it's just bouncing around. It's not really doing anything. So still around 16 cents. But either way. So actually, and I'll be curious too. Like if you were to add around here, or watch for a breakout here. Like let's say, you know, this looks like it's starting to set up. So you keep an eye on it here. And if it does start to break out on any of these days, maybe worthwhile to take a position. But anyways, going back to the dash. So like I said, so this week that's down about 1%. Nothing big. Still up for the month. And from when I started tracking, still up about 7%. So not a big deal, but IMMR is starting to hurt me. I had to add to it a little bit as we're down, because that's another chart. Like I said, this is an example of what not to do, because in hindsight, this was all wrong, and this was one of the last, you know, hopefully one of the last buys I do. And it's funny too. So this is one thing I thought. So it looked to me on the chart like it was breaking out, and I was surprised because I thought the actual earnings news wasn't that. It was good, but it was kind of like anticipated in my mind. Like IMMR had this huge run, and you know, capturing these first few runs would have all been big. These are probably all good examples of that consolidation I've been talking about. Let's can we zoom in on these ones? Right. So okay. So same thing. I mean, you kind of get this downward move. You start to get this upward move. I guess maybe you could argue this is more technically the down. And then as it starts to break out, this is where you would start to hop into this. And you could ride this up all the way to either the flattened part here, or maybe take some sell or sell part of your position here. And then ride it to, I don't know, wherever you feel comfortable. Once you get up so much, I mean, does it really matter? And this one doesn't have quite as clear of a setup. I mean, I guess you could argue it's been in a downtrend from there, but this is kind of a weak. It's kind of a weak trend. It's just kind of been moving sideways. But sometimes moving sideways is fine too. It doesn't have to be this like flag type formation. So I guess I guess we could just say, you know, it's been moving in this line here, and we're waiting for something to happen. And if it does start to break out above these moving averages, then once again, this is where you'd become interested, and then you take the position here. And once again, MACD and everything starts to turn around just right there. So there is small indications that this is about to break out on top of just those, you know, of course, that it's moving sideways. Everything looks similar, that kind of thing. And then as it breaks out here, that's where you can capture a huge part of that move. Anyways, to where we are now. Where we are now is on a huge pullback. Now, I was interested somewhere in here. Now, in hindsight, after looking at a lot of this stuff, you know, we had this kind of down here. It looked like we had a little bit of return here, but now it broke in the opposite direction. I don't short stocks, and this actually would make me think this is probably a good spot to short the stock. So my bad, but it's whatever. Like I said, it's with the thought that I'm learning, and the goal is to have a lot more of these in the right direction, and eventually, if this just becomes kind of repeatable. That's the one thing. And I've been listening to so many swing traders who have basically said they're like, literally, you need to find just even one pattern. I mean, I would assume there's a few patterns, but you know, find a few patterns that basically make sense to you. Whatever you use to screen by is what's going to allow you to kind of stay in the stocks in your watch list and keep an eye on things, and then find the charts that kind of match your pattern, and then take advantage of that. So anyways, so this one's breaking down, which kind of stinks. But the one thing I'll say is, at least in terms of where on my original thesis and what my analysis just showed, you just see RSI start to turn today. It's just starting to bounce off the very lows here. you're watching it touch the bottom Bollinger Band. Let's see if it pulls away. If it starts to pull away, then we're probably at a pretty good bottom here. And if this MACD starts to turn around, now I think this is what I saw when I started getting interested, as I saw this MACD going up here. Now in hindsight, if I would have also followed the moving averages, it probably would have kept me out of this. So that's part of why you've seen me all of a sudden add these back in, because I'd used them before. And I watched a lot of other people who trade use the moving averages and said that, it's just super important to follow the price action. You can see how often, price bounces off. I also like the Bollinger Bands, which I know a lot of people don't seem to use, but I find them helpful. So it's I guess it's whatever you find that makes sense to you. But either way, I've noticed that as this starts to turn around, that's where you can catch these upside here. But anyways, yeah, so this one's broken down. So in terms of a stop loss on this, I'm thinking what I should have done is just taken the stop loss at the end of the day. So like I said, I traded this a few times on this day, just trying it out, worked out great. Then I bought, I think, at the Bollinger Band here, so around, that must have been what it was, around like 10.25-ish, I think. And then I should have just gotten out here when it broke below. When it ended the day below kind of the previous day, that should have been my sign to just get out there. And then I wouldn't have walked into this death trap. As well as, like I said, in terms of buying to hold it, it was okay to trade it that day. The trading worked out fine because that morning it took off. That morning it was up percent. The earnings report had came out. It was really good earnings report. But the thing is, like I said, all that earnings was kind of baked into the stock because they're involved in BNED. They have the huge position. Everyone knows their position in BNED had doubled. So in hindsight, and this is, it's always a catch to say in hindsight, but you like I had shown on the longer chart here. Let's go to 10 months. This had appreciated already because of that news. Back in April and May when we watched BNED first take off, that's when you kind of noticed it happening anyways. So either way, just kind of the few things I've been watching. So what my goal is going forward is to start checking the charts and look for some of these kind of setups, these sideways trading things, and then just kind of spackle in whether it's fundamentals, narrative, insiders, those kind of things, funnel those into my lists of things I like, make sure fundamentally it seems somewhat sound, and then take advantage of that. Momentum's obviously an easy way to do it. That's one way I was thinking, I've even kind of limited my upper side in terms of market cap, but let's look at NVIDIA for that matter. Because I like to look at this stuff on all these different time scales essentially. So this is 6 months with NVIDIA. Now NVIDIA shows this extremely well. So same thing, so whatever, we had this pull up, everything's pulling back here, right? Same thing, you start to get this run up here, which, wherever that's from, something like this, you kind of get somewhere in here. So you start to notice it break out here. It breaks above the moving average kind of somewhere in here. You might have gotten stop loss on this point here, but once again, you buy on this one, and then you would be holding this through. And this one, you may get stop lost in here based on what I was saying. So it might not work perfectly. But with momentum, if you stay, no matter what, if you get stop lost on this, you're still breaking even or close to it. You didn't lose much on this, and you might have all actually gained most of that or the equivalent back on some of these other moves. This one's not as perfect of a setup. This one's pretty good one. As you see this one come through. Even if you bought all the way on this day at the 115 when it breaks above this 20-day moving average, you can follow that right up. And not the world's biggest return, but in just a few days, pretty solid. And that's what I'm saying. This is on a large, a mega cap stock where you're not necessarily expecting these things to have such large price swings, even though there technically can be. So And even on this too, the MACD kind of it kind of bounces around. So this part's tough, but then as this MACD really starts to break out too, same thing. You could just take the position here. Like I said, even if you took it at 102, even if you took it on this day after everything's broken out, everything here is screaming that this is going to go higher. Everything is. You've broken through everything. Everything you're pushing towards upper RSI. MACD's pushing up. You know, you could hold it right through most of this trade here. So, in worst case scenario, you buy at this 102.5, and on this day here, let's say around 110, you get scared and you were to get out here, it's still a gain. So that's the real goal here is to. So I think by keeping the tighter stop losses on the days I enter, and whatever, if you get stopped out a few times, not the end of the world. And just stay consistent with things as things break out above some of these things. Even if you went on like a longer time frame here, like let's say you use the 20-day moving average as your stop loss, it breaks out here, and then you're following this through here, and yeah, sure, it takes a while, and let's say this was your stop loss way up here at it was like 125-ish or whatever. If you had gotten in on this day, you're at 90. So still, it took you from May. Really, it's only maybe a month and a half, and if you're trimming on some of this too, you're getting some of that money back. You can put it into other positions, so you can kind of recycle the money as you're going, as well as ride this position up. So point being, though, is I'm not going to necessarily shy away from some of the mega caps like I have been in the past. I still think with this strategy, from what I've seen, you should be able to essentially play it no matter what. It's still kind of that same pattern in terms of how it swings backwards. Just go to dailies here. VOXX had a massive move today. Once again, this would have been a pretty good example. So MACD RSI starts to lift up here. You had a bit of a consolidation here. So we have this coming down. This one starts to pull up, and right as it does, literally on cue essentially, this breaks out above the 10-day moving average. So you take your position somewhere in here, and then you ride this up, and you might have gotten stop lossed out on this if you use just the 10-day moving average, but I guess it's in terms of your risk. Maybe put a stop loss here for half the position on the 10-day, and maybe the other half at the 20-day, because I notice a lot of times the 20-day, since it's such a trailing indicator, if there's a bigger move, it won't kick you out. So maybe just trim on part of that. And even if, for instance, I know it would suck that you missed this massive gap up here, which it's tough to predict that. I don't know if that was earnings. Oh, strategic alternatives. They're looking to sell. Not just sell the company, sell of segments, operational improvements, blah, blah, blah. So, I don't know, maybe there's an interested party that someone knows about. But either way, even what I was going to say is, like, let's say you get on this day at 250 and you end up getting out at 286. It's still for gains, and I guess that's like what I'm trying to get at with part of this. And who knows? Maybe you might not even have been looking at this stock. This would have been a random one to even be looking at, because there's not much going on here. Besides the fact that I actually think this looks like a decent little setup as it starts to break that 20-day moving average. But you get my point. So other options are there, regardless of kind of where you're looking. I mean, even on the price to sales, it's not bad. And massive insider buy. That's another thing. When was this insider buy? Of course, I don't have it pulled up here. Gentex on 8/23. So what is that? Whew, I mean, it could have caught your eye, and there's not much to go off. It's tough. That one's really tough because I will say though, the 50-day moving average catches up there. I'm not sure if that's enough, but just maybe the insider buying. But we'll see. I'm curious where it goes from here. What was it doing after hours? It was just down a little bit, 1%. So we'll see if it continues to ride up. I mean, it kind of leads some credence. This is a special situation because of the news. So I don't know. Maybe this one doesn't hold quite as true as like, you know, good earnings or the whole business is turning around. This one's possibly selling, and maybe if the news continues, I mean, I would say that whoever this is, 10%. Where was that? 10%. Who is Gentex Corp? Are these guys going to buy them? I just want to pull up VOXX real quick here. How long have they been a 10% for? I don't know why I have all these things open. So they had a 5% purchase before. Which they could have maybe been accruing slowly and wouldn't have had to say much. I wonder if Gentex is going to buy them. That'd be interesting. If you look up what is it, GNTX? Is that what it was? They have a $7 billion market cap and took a what size position? A $15 million. Okay, so it's small in terms of size. Just based on what they say that they do, though, I wouldn't be surprised if they end up buying, if their goal is to buy VOXX here. See? Once again, someone knows. Someone knows this. Interesting. If I call that, you heard it here first. You're welcome. But either way, we'll see what happens with the price action. This is a pretty big jump in one day for it to. This might not follow the normal rules. It's like I said, kind of a weird. It's a different story, I should say. Because VOXX, you know, had been trading down just because everything's pulling back. And honestly, I think it's kind of tough here to argue. You know, they don't even have a cash position. Debt's starting to grow. So things were getting tough. Earnings were getting ugly. They've been ugly. Usually are ugly. They did some buybacks or something, but kind of for nothing at that point. You want to talk about this? So they're arguing that book value is $11. Now it is $11, but due to the levered nature of it, I would argue it's worth around $6. But still, that's still $2 above where it's currently trading at. So I'll be curious to see if VOXX goes higher. Henriksen here just saying a hold. Yeah, these guys are saying the same thing. That Gentex looks like it's going to get bought by, or will buy VOXX. I kind of believe that's correct. That it's a little high here. It's annoying. I missed this entire jump up 68%, but it does make it super interesting here. Maybe I'll put in a buy order for like mid Bollinger or this moving average here, that 326. I don't know. If it gapped down that much, I'd be kind of nervous too. I'd probably put a stop at like the 10-day moving average. I kind of like using moving averages for stops. It seems to make more sense to me than how I've been doing it in the past. Because it's more based on price action, less on randomness, like of a trailing loss or something like that. But anyways, yeah, I'll check this in the morning to see what's going on, because it's definitely interesting to me. Just go to my checklist and just add this. I've been trying to keep this one updated here. No, that's not what I want to do. All right, well, there you go. One and done. We're good. We're ready for tomorrow. Let's see. Pain. CNF. It's a financial. Yeah. See, once again, same pattern. Everything's turning around here. Now, I will say MACD was actually still positive here and was coming down, laid flat here. So this would be a bit of a warning, as well as RSI, but RSI is also kind of coming back here. But same thing, same exact pattern where you kind of have this, I don't know, wherever you want to draw it off of, this kind of coming in here. And then this one starts to consolidate upwards. And as you get these higher lows, essentially, Then on this day, you got a quick bump. You get this quick gap up, which puts you above the moving averages. And then today, and now we gapped all the way up to the 50-day moving average. And I find, you know, we'll see. Can this go above the moving average, or is this the whole move? Now, even if you had gotten in here at $1, you'd still make a 20% gain in a day. And you know, stochastic's still pushing up. Yeah, depending how crazy, like I said, you know, one of the things I've noticed before is as it pulls away from that Bollinger Band, this is a good place to take low buys. So even if you had bought on one of these days at opening, now it's tough to say because the moving averages haven't caught up. So it kind of breaks the rules there a little bit. So I guess it depends on how much risk you'd want to take on. I'll have to look and see, is it worth taking risk on? Because I feel like it's not, because I feel like there's too many times like here it pulls away, but it's too far from anything to really support it. MACD still looks kind of hideous there too. Where at least in this section, at least there's some positive, you know, moving average convergence divergence. You know, this one, I mean, that's kind of crazy that the price is completely flat here. You don't see that very often with Bollinger Bands. And even this one, as this one breaks out, not a huge return, but a return nonetheless. But once again, same pattern. You're watching everything kind of converge there, and you start to get this return. Then you hit this point where it kind of, like, you can tell the market doesn't know what to do. It's literally flat. Either that or no one's even looking at it. And what was this at? This is at, so we'll say on this moving average on one of these days, you get in at $1.55-ish. And let's say you could sell there at $1.70. Now, like I said, not a huge return, but for a profit. And if you trim on some of these bigger moves, I mean, you could have trimmed all the way here at $1.80 or something, which is actually really good for, you know, a week or two. Not the strongest one, not the strongest example, but like I said, my goal is just to look at some of these smaller, you know, these things are moving quick. These are daily movers. You know, these are things that you could find kind of randomly, but hopefully consistently, and actually turn it into something. A lot of volume on that one, but yeah, these ones are, I'm not seeing too much on these. There's VOXX again. What in the world? Is that even the same company? I just want to see this back to the December period. That threw me off when I first changed that. Man, like, this is a pretty wild example here. This is a random biotech. So you have this huge down move, and honestly, I don't even want to argue that. We'll just say this. We'll say this consolidates here. Now it starts to break out here, and it breaks through like the 10-day moving average. You know, it keeps bouncing off, so you can take a position on any of these Bollinger Bands or just get in on any of these days essentially. And then it breaks above 20. And you could essentially ride this up. And then it never touches the 20-day moving average. So it does touch here. So you might get stop lossed out on here. But if you didn't, you went from $1. What was this? This is $1. It's December like 15th. And if you would have held it till the moving averages broke down up here, so in 1 month, it's a 10 bagger. And what was the news on this one? Oh, super lightly traded. So this wouldn't be as easy as it sounds, because it was really lightly traded. Okay, there was a bunch of shares moving here. Okay, still 20,000. So and this was, I mean, but it was small. Wow, there was no one looking at this thing. Oh, but the market cap would have been so small. It would be really hard to find this one. Yeah, that's the only thing, is it would be really hard to find this one, because if market cap right now is 35 million, and a tenth of that, so it'd be $3 million market cap. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, yeah. It sounds good in hindsight, but I don't know. I don't know if you'd be able to pull that one off. But I mean, kind of crazy. So someone was in down here. I hope someone rode that up for that ride. And where was ZIVO? So, because the other thing too is, you know, it might not have popped up on your radar until someone here. But if you bought off the moving average here, you could have followed that essentially to, and my Bollinger Band moving average is five periods, by the way. You could, I mean, you could have caught some of this move, maybe. I don't know. It's really hard to say if you would be in that or not. Does this even pull up in here? A recent insider buying. It's kind of interesting. obviously I've never looked at these guys because number one, I don't really look at biotech all that often, just because it's kind of trivial to even do it. You know, I can just tell here looking at the metrics, like nothing here looks great. But you know, if this is moving too, it has to be on some kind of, there has to be something going on in the background too. Like the charts are great, but like there's something that's causing that price action to actually move. That's why it's kind of nice to as I've learned to start to appreciate the technical side of things, to have the fundamental background, because I always know in the background there's a reason for these moves. Now on the chart, yeah, you can just look at the chart sometimes and pull it off, and that's why I think some people just believe in technicals, because they don't have to really worry about all that other stuff. But I just think you're like, you don't have to go like in super depth detail, but why not just check like a few major things just to see what's going on, just to see what it is, like what's so positive about it that's causing it to bounce up. I say, what the hell is taking so long here? Yeah. So really small share count too. So obviously it doesn't. That's part of the reason why it's so volatile. Is it doesn't take much to happen here with only 2 million shares. I don't know if it's quite even 2 million shares, but to go to $11 is nutty. And like I said, the nice thing though about the chart though is the chart allows you to stay in this for this entire move essentially, or most of this move, without like feeling like you've reached like some cost where you're like, okay, I should sell out now, like it's overpriced, which is one of the things that I feel like is a huge downside of fundamental analysis. Is, yeah, you want to get in, or if you're a value investor, you want to get in and then you decide, okay, well, when should I get out? Well, one way to choose to get out is by using technicals, and you know, by planning your exits off some pretty like set ground rules. I feel like that will allow you to be pretty strict on these. But either way, I will say, you know, kind of going forward too, is, you know, I've talked about, you know, kind of moving more into swing trading, and kind of that style has seemed to make a lot of sense to me. And in hindsight too, of like, after the more I look at things, it looks like if you can consistently play this breakout, which I see constantly all over the place, and I'm not saying this like I'm the only person who's come up with this. I was looking at a ton of different strategies, and this was just one of the ones that made sense. As soon as I read other people like had said, hey, I see this like all the time, it was similar to what I was looking at with Bollinger Bands. And just adding in the moving averages really kind of helped to solidify the whole idea to me. And then going forward, yeah, it's going to be just being able to find the stocks. That's the big thing, is finding the stocks as they make these moves. All right. Like, this is just another biotech where I'm kind of seeing a similar setup here. So we got that downward move, upward consolidation, starts to meet into here, right actually at the 10-day moving average. So obviously you could take a position here. Could also wait for the 20-day moving average, or even maybe now we're crossing over the 50-day moving average. And let's say if you use the 20-day moving average as your stop loss, It might be better. I'm just because I'm looking back at this day, and this isn't as, like I said, some of these aren't super clear setups. So I'm not saying you would have captured any of this, but let's say you had bought down here off RSI and MACD turning around, and you rode this one up. You know, if you put a stop loss in at the 10-day moving average for here, you would get out at a pretty good spot, where if you did the 20, it'd be down here. Now, still, if you're buying somehow, if you're capturing, even on, let's say you capture on this day somewhere, you're still up. And it's not after a huge amount of time. It's like 2 or 3 weeks. But the only thing, though, is like these aren't, they are big moves. Don't get me wrong. It's still almost a 50% return on some of these moves right now. Like, this is still up. This is still a 50% return right now, wherever this is at 70 cents. VNRX. Let's see where that is right now. Now, and I know after hours doesn't really mean shit, but like, okay, it's still hovering right around there. And like, they're still having beats. Now, granted, these are all negative numbers, but that's kind of the thing that seems to be crazy about this deep value stuff, is that it's not, you know, with deep value, you would think that, like, okay, it needs to have positive earnings. It has to have, no, it's really just kind of turning around. It's going in the other direction, which is causing the price to appreciate, because it's already kind of priced for, like, death. Like, this is already priced like it's a shit company, which, no offense, it's not doing anything yet. Now EPS is only minus 40 cents a share, which I don't know how many outstanding shares they have, so that kind of matters. 92 million, so it doesn't look great. But my point being is, this is some random biotech, where, to be honest, the business, most of that side doesn't matter. $64 million market cap still. And like I said, see a very similar pattern here. We'll go back to the dashboard here. See, the thing I'm noticing is, like, this pattern works so often that it's almost profitable no matter what. But the thing is finding it when it's like a really big uptrend. Like, for instance, like, let's zoom back just a smidge here. Like, this is a huge move. This whole thing is a massive move. Where if you're making, like, this one here, small move. I mean, it's not bad, but it's small. But yeah, I don't, and just looking, I don't know if there's anything that kind of differentiates one from the other. You know, I also wonder too, is this more the timing of the market? Is the market in general bullish during this period? Let's look at a 10-month chart, and let's just do SPY. Do this at 10-month chart. All right, I can't see where the heck I am, so let me get rid of all this stuff. All right, so Cord had a huge move from Feb to April. The market was in a decent uptrend there from Fed to April. Then it had another move from mid-June to mid-July and then broke right down. Mid-June to July, and then, yeah, during this down period for the markets, it pulled back. So it wasn't just this continue. And then April to May, what did it do? That's where you see it kind of bounce around. So it might just be, in terms of these bigger moves, you're just going to happen. You're going to get those more often when just the whole markets are bullish, because everything's going to be going up, and it's going to be going up by more than it would during a bear market, obviously. So in bear markets, obviously, which shouldn't come as a surprise, it's going to be a lot harder to be long in a bear market. Like, you're just not going to get the same kind of setups. Things aren't going to work out. They're going to break down, you're probably going to have a lot of break evens or even stop losses kind of kicking you out of things before you can do much. So, another thing I found interesting, Johnny, and I wonder if you, I'm assuming you'll watch this, but so we were talking about when it starts to move sideways here, and I'm not getting into something until like it actually starts to break through. One thing I noticed as it pulls away from the Bollinger Band here that's kind of interesting to me is, so it pulls away here, and yeah, it does have pops here. You could possibly capture some of these. You could possibly get on this low RSI day here. It's really tough because the MACD here is breaking down, so this would not be, to me, an interesting time to get in. Usually that's kind of a no buy. But you'll notice that, like, 10-day moving average has just caught up down here, where 20 is still kind of like doing this free fall type thing. And my point being is, if you look back over here, so like you have this thing where it kind of bounced here and then kind of comes back down a little bit, and then it bounces again. But you have where the moving averages are caught up, and once they cross over the moving average, now I don't know if that's just technical traders causing that to flop over, or computers or whatever. Maybe we got to be one with the robots. Like if the robots are saying buy, we buy. Let's not fight AI. We'll work with it. So, as well as it's pulling sideways away from the Bollinger Band, that's a bullish signal. But as well, as soon as it starts to cross over some of these moving averages, that's a bullish signal. Real bullish. And then, this is the 50-day moving average. Now, I will say, in terms of like a general whole uptrend, if it crosses over the 50-day moving average, I mean, that's a bullish run. And same thing, look at here, breaks down over the 50-day moving average. It does break right there, which but this whole part's kind of messy here. And like I said, a big thing too is, like, for instance here too, as this part starts to break out right here and you start to break through, make sure you're trimming on this. Because let's say, for instance, you buy on this 10-day moving average, or, I mean, technically it broke out on a 20-day moving average. So, I mean, you could have got in here and you probably would have got stop loss. So let's say you bought back in here. And this, I know this isn't a big move. I know I'm not saying that I would do this. I'm just saying, I'm just reading the chart here. It starts to bounce up from this number here, and let's say you trimmed on so many days or something like that, and or just at this huge peak through Bollinger Band, maybe a big peak, maybe you trim some on this day, trim some on this day, and I'm talking good amounts. Like, let's say you trim 25%, 30%, so either a third of the stock or 25% of the stock. You would capture that gain that you wanted here, most of it. And then if you ended up putting your stop loss here at like one of these moving averages, or as this starts to pull down here on this Bollinger Band, maybe on this day you sell out here. Number one, that's still a profit. It's not much. it's like a percent or so, but you locked in most of that. So let's say you had locked in 30 or 50% of your stock sale by there, maybe 60 if you were selling 30% on these big breakthroughs. Now, I get it, on some of these times you're going to kick yourself because you're going to be like, I shouldn't have sold big amounts on here. But let's say you sold a big amount here, maybe a big amount there, and then you rolled this up like, okay, well, 60% of your stock you sold for like let's say you bought in on this moving average here. You sold for like a 15% gain on 50% of your stock, which allows that funds to get kind of rolled into the next stock. But then you let this other bit just kind of hold until, like I said, until this moving average or something breaks down, or something on this like longer term chart here. And that the other 30% gets another, 30% on it, so I mean, it kind of like takes the worry out of this, because like, who cares if you hold this one? Like, why? Yeah, I mean, as it just continues to climb, and even on these pullback days, it didn't even scare you because you're like, it didn't quite get to the moving averages, so who cares? What time here? I'll probably call it an early night, guys, just because I'm gonna have a long day tomorrow too. Just have a lot going on I got to get through. So I'll probably just go till 9. And I know this is kind of a different stream. I haven't been totally, but I figured there honestly wasn't much daily movers. It wasn't really a great day for it. And I probably will use some of these losers. Loser, to find the next thing. Because, to be honest, this is like the worst chart to show you as an example. Go to LUMN. Well, this isn't a great one, but still, this might be a good one to show you like look at LUMN for, this is LUMN. Look at LUMN as it breaks through. Now, not the clearest signal here. But I'm not gonna lie. I would argue that's the signal. 3 or 4 days. A little bit longer of a trend. You could pull this back to there. You could make that argument here. I mean, you could even make this argument that this goes back to here, and that this goes somewhere into here. It's more of like one of these kind of type moves, and then breaks out, and then you just hold this sucker, and then maybe you sell 30% on that day. 30% on that day, and then just hold the rest till you hit one of these moving averages, which this day didn't touch. You might have got sold out on that day. Oh well, big deal. You just made like a 200% gain or 100% gain, and wow, actually, if you bought here at $1, it's almost a 500% gain. And see, this is one of the reasons why I'm becoming more and more interested in swing trading, because you get in here at like a $1.10 or something like that, and I'm not saying you're going to get these all the time, but you only need to get a few of these. Where if this was like, let's say this is a 20% position of the portfolio, and you capture a huge chunk of that move at 500%. I mean, you can see how in the course of just over a month and a half, you're getting massive returns. All right. Anything else? Because I know, and I knew LUMN was a big mover, because I've been keeping an eye on LUMN. But that's what I'm saying. So just have a few screeners out there, kind of watching for momentum type moves. And then if you look at the chart, it looks like it was just recently in a breakout. Might be an interesting time to take a position. And like I said, and according to the charts, if MACD, everything's holding up, and a lot of times when you see these big gap ups, there's positive guidance. or it's already been kind of in an uptrend, and you might have missed the first part of the move, but it's kind of maybe pulled back a little, or it's trading sideways now, and you're waiting for that next like move up. Those are good times to like add it to, I feel like, my watch list, and that's going to be kind of like the goal, is to start tacking those to watch lists, and then as those ones start to you know, if you could keep a running list of like 50 of those at all times, it's probably a good way of, you know, and then as the story changes, or you know, maybe something doesn't work out, you can boot it from the list. And then just kind of keep rotating them. I don't know. I can see it. I can see it working when I look back. It looks pretty good to me. Sadly, someone was viewing. Someone's been in and out today. I don't know if it's the same person or who's in, but like I said, I didn't have too much to go through today, so I think I'll call it there. Oh, you know what I forgot to mention, because I was gonna mention this literally when the stream started, and it totally slipped my mind, is we're working on the Discord. So Johnny's been sending me the list to, well, not a list, but showing me kind of the different parts that he's getting together for the Discord. He'll probably have more information on Thursday when he streams, and then Saturday too. We might have to adjust the time. We'll let everybody know on X what time we're going to stream on Saturday. But I think we're going to try and get the Discord up sooner than later. I haven't had even a chance to really go through it. He had sent me kind of what he had been working on, and I just haven't got a chance to go through it. So I'm hoping sometime this week or even this weekend I can just go through it and get caught up on where it's at. And yeah, the goal going forward will be to hopefully get my money back on some of these positions that I'm in currently. And then once I'm done with that, start kind of looking for these setups and take advantage of them, and we'll see where it goes from there. It is a little bit longer of a holding term period, so I'm sure some people won't be interested. I know NASCAR, he'll probably be like, nah, I'm just intraday. But and the intraday is great, and I know you can get huge returns intraday, but and to be honest, maybe these, what I'm looking at here, a lot of this stuff will translate over to intraday chart. To be honest, I'm not sure. It's tough to say. I mean, you can see here it breaks above, and you could sell out there. Breaks above, you could sell out somewhere in here. I don't know. But these are much smaller moves too. You'd have to be doing this constantly, which I can't do it. I don't have time for it. And to be honest, I don't know if I want to sit in front of a computer and stare at a screen like that. My eyes will dry out of my head here. So I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. But either way. So yeah, I think I'm just going to continue to kind of screen for these kind of movers, and then when I see them, add them to the watch list. Things that look interesting, especially if like the fundamentals look good, or because with the fundamentals too, one good thing I noticed about the fundamentals is definitely you can see cyclicals, and you can follow like a commodity or whatnot to see where that is. The narratives are pretty easy now. I mean, to be honest, it doesn't take a genius to figure out most of the narratives. And then the other huge one, like for instance, we'll pull up one last chart. Values granddaddy, the NutX. So okay, this looks like it follows the setup decently. It's a little tough on this to get it just because it bounces so quick down here. But either way, you do follow the MACD, the RSI turnaround like Johnny and I have spoken of. So that could be an initial decent signal to kind of warn you, hey, this thing's starting to turn around. You get a few green candles. You get this day here, which could have been earnings. I know earnings was somewhere. Was it this one or this one was earnings? I don't remember. Either way, start to find a bottom in the stock, essentially. It breaks above moving averages here. You could capture a big chunk of this move. Let's say you got stop lossed out here. and then once again follow through. And even if you ended up buying it like the $10 mark, once again it holds up and it's still holding up. It hasn't touched anything, so it wouldn't have been a sell. You would have just been holding. And let's say you had sold off a little bit in here, you're still capturing huge parts of this move. And this is a random stock, you know, that value sent to me. And, you know, all it would have taken is reading through the transcript and saying, hey, you know what? I like what you're saying, you know, and I will then let the chart tell me if I should agree with you or not. And then it kind of takes some of the guesswork out of it. And then, you know, like I said, if it breaks above these things, and even this one breaks above the 50-day moving average. And there's a few charts we've looked at today so far where it breaks above this 50-day moving average. And that's like, we're in bull run territory there. So maybe, I mean, this one does touch the 20 moving average. So maybe you got stop loss there. But once again, then it breaks right above the 10 again. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it would be just smarter. No matter what, you get in above this 20-day moving average, you stop loss out at the 10 here, and you know you would have sold maybe on here and maybe there at 30%, 25%, whatever. You get stop lossed out there. Once again, you know it trails back down. You're watching it, and once again, huge breakout day, up to $10, and then still at $10, you still got another 100% move. You might have sold on this day and maybe one of these days in here, and then you're just holding. You're just holding essentially. And what is not? Wasn't it back up in after hours? I think it was down a little bit today, but right back up. Yeah, right back up. So once again, it just holds up, and once again, it takes someone doing the like value. It takes him going through and looking for these companies to find them, because this is deep value. It's things that people aren't looking at. Now, you could probably do this with all like large cap stocks, and everyone's going to be on it. There's analysts that are watching these things, but you also probably you're going to get a lot bigger moves in some of these small cap companies. Now, if your money gets too high, you're not going to be able to look at all these smaller ones. But for those of us who, I mean, I don't have a huge account going into this, so you know I can definitely look at stuff and get into some of these market caps. I have noticed that it is. Like I said, I do set like my minimum market cap currently at around 30 million for anything I screen for, just because I find it's kind of a risk to do it any different than that. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see where we go from here. Like I said, I still gotta wait for this stupid IMMR to turn around. Such bad timing. I look at the chart back, and it was stupid because like I said, I was trading it, and then I was like, oh, I'll trade it one more time, and I'll just hold it for a little bit because, you know, it's been working out so well. And then I looked at the chart later that day, and I'm like, this chart looks like shit. This is a terrible time to buy and hold that. So whatever. But in the long run, even if I have to take some of a loss on this, or let's say it pulls back and I at least make my money back, I figure if I take the money from here and start putting it into this other, you know, what I've been watching, it should work. And I don't see any reason why, if this is working, you can't get 50% returns for the year, which was initially our goal, 50 to 100% returns. I don't see any reason you couldn't hit it following this. Time and time again, there's so many times you see these stocks follow this criteria that if it breaks through, it's worth, you know, holding it and kind of trading it through here. And then, like I said, just kind of rotating the amount of stocks. You know, don't go too crazy. You don't need to hold 30 of these, because it's going to become kind of unwieldy and you're going to end up making mistakes. But you also don't need to hold, you know, don't hold one. Don't do what I did with BNet. You know, hold. You know, like I said, bare minimum 3. I would argue 4, 5 is probably even smarter. And as you get more comfortable, you can condense those down. But initially at the start, I would think it would be sound financial advice. Now, granted, I'm not saying any of this is financial advice, because I am so far I've been playing around losing money doing this, so this is not financial advice. But I will say though, as I look chart after chart after chart after chart, this works out. And if you have the fundamentals or the narrative to back it, it can work out really well. All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna call it there. Sorry, it's a little bit of a shorter stream, but this is kind of what I've been working on. You know, this is what I've been kind of watching, and like I said, I've been reading quite a bit on different strategies and setups and things like that, and just trying to add that into my universe of things and the way I look at them, and so far this just continues to work. So let me know what you guys think. Johnny, let me know what you think, and we'll see going forward. All right. Everybody have a good rest of your week. Johnny will be on Thursday. Hopefully he'll be able to go over more of the Discord server. I'm hoping I get a chance to look at more of it so we can get that official and get it kind of launched. Because I think if we were able to do this, like if we were able to do it towards like the start of opening of markets or something like that, like that'd be a lot of fun. If we're like, hey, this one looks really good today, it could break out. And then if it does on that day, and a few of us are interested in it, and I'm not saying to take positions. Do your own due diligence, please. Please do your own due diligence on these things. Do not buy things because Johnny and I are buying them. Because I'll every time I buy, it'll be the exception to this rule that I think I found, or rules guidelines essentially. But yeah, so we'll get that Discord going, and then hopefully we can kind of talk things out, and we'll start to make some money here. Let's make some money, guys. All right, well, with that, I'm going to end the stream. I hope everyone has a good rest of your week. I got my last bit here. Cheers. Cheers to the GOAT, RK. I know one day I'll be joining you on your island, wherever that is. All right. Peace out, everybody.